Welcome back, everybody. Here with Josh Gentchos, old friend of mine, just graduated from Bishop Brady. So, Josh, welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So, let's start off first, just kind of going through what you want to go through, and we'll just go through that.
Yeah. So, generally, I'm a track and field athlete. I'm a sprinter. I am mainly a 100 and 200 meter specialist. I'm also the anchor leg for our 4x1 relay. We're the Division III champions in the 4x1 relay, and I am the Division III champion in the 100 and 200, as well as the state champion in the 100 and 200. So I think we were going to start talking a little bit about my sort of my journey through athletics outside of just track and field. So as you know, when we went to Green Valley, which was a lot of fun, we didn't have sports teams.
Yeah.
So I played on the Concord recreational soccer teams, and that's sort of where my sports experience kind of started. From that, I played on the Runlet Middle School soccer team. I wasn't great. I was good enough to make the A team, but I was by far the worst on that team. It was kind of a tough experience because I didn't attend Runlet, and so I was this kid that nobody knew who was on the good team but was the worst player on the good team. So I was kind of like, people weren't really comfortable with me. But it was a good experience because even though it was middle school, at the time it felt like a sort of elevated level of athletic experience. And then after soccer, when I joined high school, when I went to Bishop Brady, I played football. And at one point during one of our football practices, my coach at the time, we were doing hurdle drills. We were bounding over little wickets. And he sort of looks at me and he's like, "Have you ever done track?" I was like, "No, I've never thought about it." And he's like, "You're really bouncy. You should do triple jump." And so that's sort of how it started. I joined track, a jumper, and came out a sprinter.
What year of high school was that?
That was freshman year. So
Okay.
that was very early on.
So for you, was that a big surprise for you? Were you not expecting something like that?
It was kind of a surprise. I've always been fast, but I was never that into being fast. I just happened to be, fast. And I sort of thought that football was going to be my sport. And it kind of turned out to be a stepping stone into track.
Okay. So for you, can you go a little bit over that first year of football and that season, what it meant for you and how your team did as a whole?
Yeah, so that was an interesting season because that was coming right off of COVID. And so our school is usually Division III for sports, but because we're so small, football has Division IV, and so we were a Division IV team. And the problem was we were one of the few schools that was open during that, I believe that was 2020 fall season. We were one of the few schools that were open, and there were practically no Division IV schools. So we were actually competing against Division II teams. I think our first game was against Merrimack Valley, maybe. And I know we competed against Pembroke Academy that year as well. So, as far as the record goes, we didn't do awesome. We were probably 1-4 or something like that. We didn't play a ton of games. But it was an important season because it was sort of the introduction to how the high school experience is with sports. And because we were such a small team, we were a really close team. And I got to know a lot of the people who I ended up doing track with on that team. And so our season ended at the game against Raymond. It was actually, we were going for a 2-point conversion. I'm pretty sure it was 13-12 or something. And it was a little flick pass to our fullback and he dropped it. And right on the line of scrimmage, we were so close. But it was a good season, and it was a good learning experience for high school sports.
So how would have the playoffs worked since there wasn't really any Division IV teams? Would you have been in the Division III playoff bracket or what?
I'm not really sure, to be totally honest. Raymond is Division IV, so we were up against them, and it was a playoff game. I'm not sure what other Division IV teams were actually competing at that time, but we might have moved on to a Division III team, or that might have just been it, and we might have just called ourselves the Division 4 champions. I'm not really sure.
Okay, so what position did you play?
At that time, I was a wide receiver. I was also a defensive end, actually, which I thought was kind of funny because I'm not that big of a guy. But I was fairly physical. I was kind of scrappy. So I thought I was a pretty decent defensive end. But as my football experience developed, I actually became a running back because I have no hands. I can't catch a ball.
Yeah, so for you with running back, obviously, we mentioned that you're fast and you can avoid hurdles. Was that like your sophomore year or junior year that happened?
Yeah, I believe it was my junior year that really came into fruition. My sophomore year, we had the same head coach as my freshman year, and I believe I played mostly wide receiver, and I was okay. I was good at route running, but I couldn't really finish plays. Our quarterback didn't have a ton of faith in my hands, so I could get open, but I would struggle to catch the ball. And then my junior year, we had a head coach change, went from Tony Johnson to Brendan Johnson. And my junior year was when I kind of sprouted in the football side of things. During our game against, I believe, Newfound, it was an away game, and we were kind of struggling to get points. It was a close game, and our coach, he was like, "Hey, Josh, I need you to take up this running back role real quick. Our guys, are tired." And it was my first play as running back, and I scored a touchdown. And from there, he was like, "All right, you're a running back now. We know we need you to be." And then that's kind of how it went for the rest of high school, playing running back.
Neat. So for you, was running back the most fun position to play?
Absolutely. Running back was so much easier. I'm not an unintelligent guy. I consider myself fairly smart, but I really struggled with remembering what routes to run and all that. My football intelligence wasn't great. And running back was pretty simple. It was, look for the hole and find the hole and go that way. So yeah, running back was fun because it wasn't mentally challenging. And I also got to hit some people, which was really fun.
So for you, can you take us through your sophomore year, like as a team a little bit, what your record was and just more of a normal structure after COVID?
Yeah, so sophomore year was definitely one of our weaker years as a team, and it's one of my less memorable seasons. We had a losing record. I don't remember exactly what it was, but we didn't play too many games since Division 4 is a smaller division. We were probably like 3-5 or something like that. It was definitely a fun season. I believe that year we played Raymond in it was not actually a playoff game. We didn't make the playoffs. We missed out by one spot. But our final game was against Raymond, and it was kind of like a revenge game since they had knocked us out the previous year. And we actually beat them by, I believe, 2 runs. And that was a memorable game because in the fourth quarter, our quarterback at the time, Matt Wiley, just launched a beautiful 40-yard pass down the sideline. It was a nice over-the-shoulder catch, which I don't get very much. So that was very memorable. And then we had one of our athletes, John Thomas, I believe, made a big interception right at the end of the game that kind of sealed the deal. So it was a memorable game. But the season as a whole didn't go awesome, but that game was good.
So you guys were in Division 4 again?
Yes.
Okay. So how many games do you play that season?
I want to say around 7, maybe 8,
Okay.
something like that. It wasn't too many.
All right, still more than 5 the previous season.
Yeah, definitely better.
Okay, junior year?
Yeah, junior year was when we really started to sprout. That was the year, my most memorable year, I want to say, because that's when I started playing running back and being more successful in football. And so we had I believe we were 5-5 or something like that. We made playoffs. Unfortunately, got knocked out by Newport, who was the runner-up team. And they were very good. They had one athlete, Kyle Ashley.
Yep.
He's a little bit well known. He's a very good javelin thrower. And he was a great football player. Fun to compete against. I smacked him in the nose at one point, gave him a nosebleed. They thought it was targeting. I just didn't know how to tackle. But yeah, that was a fun game, and that was a good season. Definitely a lot of memorable moments from that season.
Okay. So for you, what was your record that year? Do you know roughly?
Yeah, about 5-5, something like that.
Okay, closer to 500.
Yeah.
And you guys make playoffs and everything?
We did, yeah. And that's
That
where
was the
we
Newport?
we met up with
Okay.
Newport. We played them twice, both times away. They beat us both times. They were a good team that year.
So was that first round, second round?
I believe that was first round.
Okay. And then senior year?
Senior year was tough. We had another head coach change to Rob Klaus. He's a very knowledgeable football guy, and it was a fun season for sure. But early on, a game against Raymond again, sort of my personal football rivals. I was doing an inside run, and a guy grabbed my leg and kind of yanked and twisted, and I messed up my MCL. It was not a full tear, but it was some sort of tweaking, something in there, and it was messed up for a while, and so I had to sit out most of my senior season, especially with the track season. I kind of made the decision that I may have been able to return to play with one of those big ACL braces that you see, but it wouldn't have been the smart move. It would have put my track season at jeopardy. And so as bad as I felt to sit out most of the season, I kind of had to make that call based on my plans for college and my plans for track. But we had a great team. We just struggled with injury. We had a very powerful offense, and we tried to jam the ball just sort of up people's throats. And unfortunately, we had dudes who weren't quite in the right physical shape for that. So we ended up kind of fallen flat as far as our record went, but we had all the parts for it. It was just the injuries that kind of held us back, unfortunately.
Gotcha. It sounds like collectively you guys improved every season. It was just the injuries your senior year that
I would say so.
tanked
Yeah.
things. Okay, so let's get into other sports. I don't think you play any winter sports. Is that right?
I do indoor track,
Okay.
but
It's more like preparation for the spring.
it really is. Yeah, indoor track is when you sprint, you compete in a shorter event than outdoor. You compete in the 55 in New England, or the 60 in most states. But I'm famously not great at accelerating. I have a bad start. And so indoor season for me is like a building block season to prepare my acceleration for the outdoor season, and also to transition from the football aspect where I do a lot of direction changes. I change up my sprinting form so that I can move around better, to transition back into proper sprinting like I do in outdoor.
So you feel like football and track, they kind of build on each other, and doing both kind of makes you better at the other one.
They do, yeah. It's very common for football athletes to do track. It's less common for track athletes to do football as an off-season sport. But I kind of like seeing things through, and I felt it was sort of unfair, even once I found my calling in track, to just sort of walk away from the football team, especially at Bishop Brady, which is so small. In the end, it ended up not mattering because I got hurt. But it's definitely common, and I highly recommend for any football athletes to do track, to learn how to move your body like that, to move quick. Track is a sport about power. Football is a sport about power. They really work very well together.
So for you, can you talk about like some of the events and just what it was like for you as a freshman to deal with that
Yeah.
and learning that?
So freshman year was actually a little bit of a weird year for me because I actually went in as a jumper as opposed to a sprinter. I primarily did the triple jump, which is a less popular event because it's really hard. It's very common to have shin splints, and it's a lot of strain on your knees. If you don't have strong knees, you really struggle in the triple jump. But freshman year, really, I had never done track before, and I wasn't very familiar with it. So I was learning, how it works, what the meets look like, what it's like to compete in track. So I did triple jump and long jump, and then we put together a 4x100 meter relay team, and I was the first leg on that. So that was my introduction to sprinting, was running the first leg on our relay team. But it was definitely fun. It was probably one of the most memorable years just because it was the start of, the whole career. And at that point, I wasn't even taking it seriously. I was just having fun, meeting new people, making friends. But it was a really enjoyable year.
Good. So for you, how did things evolve kind of from your freshman year onto your sophomore year when you started to gain more experience?
Yeah, so we had a sprinter on our team named Jack Beauchene, who was very, very good. And he was a little bit of a role model for me. I saw him competing in the sprints, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. I wish I could do that. So the summer after my freshman year, I actually started training for sprinting because I was sort of interested in becoming a sprinter. One of my biggest challenges was I wasn't really sure how to tell my coaches, hey, I love jumping, but I also want to try sprinting now. And I honestly don't remember how that happened, but it just ended up that, I got to do a 100-meter dash my first race, first meet back. And because I had been, training over the summer, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I ran a decent time for somebody who didn't know what they were doing. I believe I ran 11:89, which is not a bad time for a sophomore who really doesn't know how to sprint. And that was kind of a big moment for me because my season goal had been to go under 12 seconds, and I accomplished it on my first race.
Wow.
And so, we were at that point starting to build more sprinters because Jack Beauchene, who really doesn't get enough credit for his influence on the team, he kind of ushered in several sprinters who, would see his success and think, wow, I want to be like that. And so that year we started having more and more sprinters, and I was very happy to have achieved my goal. And then him and I kept working each other down until eventually at the end of that year, I believe he had ran 11.5, maybe 11.4s, and I had run an 11.3. And it was a really, really good year.
So you feel like with teammates, you kind of push each other to get better?
Absolutely, especially with Jack because he was such a good sprinter. But also, I have so many teammates throughout the years that have pushed me. Nick Brown, Alan Yap, Nate Stegmeyer, Chris Messmore, Josh Bisa, just to name a few. There are so many more. But they've all been key components in continuing my sprinting journey because when you train alone in sports, it's kind of difficult. It's like, you're a football player running routes, but you don't have a quarterback to throw a ball to you. So,
Gotcha.
When you sprint, you can do as much as you like, but if you don't have somebody to look at it and point out and say, hey man, you should try this, you don't get as good as you would have been otherwise. So I absolutely attribute, I'd give more than half of my success can be attributed to, my teammates and what they've done for me.
Okay. So for junior year, we'll do junior year, senior year.
Yeah, junior year is when it really got good. My indoor season, I had adjusted how I ran in my top end speed, which is an aspect of the sport that's usually very genetic. People either naturally are fast at their full speed or not. And I was okay my sophomore year, but I did a lot of research, did a lot of working out, and sort of learned a little bit more on how to have a good top speed. And my indoor season was my first taste of success because I won the indoor 55-meter Division II state championship, which was an unexpected victory. I beat this guy named Tim Kelm, who's one of my absolute favorite competitors. He's just an amazing guy, but his strength is his start. He accelerates very quickly, and so I was able to beat him in that 55-meter race at the time, which was kind of my wake-up call to say, like, hey, I'm pretty decent. I can do something with this. And then pairing that with our relay team, that was our first victory as well. We won the 4x200 meter relay indoors. And that all sort of cascaded into the outdoor season where we were all now in this spot where we're the defending champions. People kind of know who we are. And the outdoor season just had so many successes. Our 4x1 relay team broke the school record. I had a lot of success in my 100 meter, and at that point I actually started branching out into the 200 meter, which I had not done previously. And this was my first year that I broke the 11-second barrier over the 100 meters. I ran, actually funny enough, I ran under 11 seconds 2 times, and I lost both of those races. Those were my only 2 losses up to that point in the season, which was pretty funny, I think. My 2 best times. But yeah, junior year is when it all started.
Okay, so after junior year, you're like, okay, I'm really good at this. I have 1 year left of high school, including football and 1 more track season. What am I thinking about for college? How do I manage that? And we can kind of briefly talk about that process and then kind of finish up your senior year, then talk about college more in depth.
Yeah, so coming out of junior year, I had some concerns about my sort of genetic cap. I didn't know how much of what I was doing was because of the work that I'd put in and how much was just because I have a natural ability. And so that was definitely like a mental challenge for me coming into my senior year, where I was worried that even though I had put in a lot of work, that I wouldn't improve. I opened up my senior year running an 11:1 at Belmont, which is a decent time, especially for a season opener, but I wasn't very happy with it. I had hoped to open up under 11 seconds. And then I ran a few more races, didn't do as well as I wanted, and then I went to the Sanborn Invitational, which is sort of a big D2, D3 meet, and I got to compete against some really good guys, and that was my first successful race. I ran a 10:78, which at the time was the 3rd fastest 100-meter dash that I'm aware of, at least in the history of the state.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, so it was a big accomplishment, and that was sort of that relit the fire for me to continue improving, and it kind of knocked away my concerns about, oh, maybe I've reached my limit, maybe I've gotten as far as I can get. It sort of reignited the flame of I can keep improving, and that's kind of what I did after the Sanborn Invitational. I fell off a little bit. We had Bishop Brady does a Habitat for Humanity mission trip over one of the breaks. I don't remember which one. And I went on that, and that's a week-long thing where we go down to West Virginia and we build houses for Habitat for Humanity.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's really cool, but I don't get to keep my schedule for training, and more importantly, my nutrition changes up, and I'm eating less nutritious foods. And so I had a little bit of a setback, but I got back on the right track, which eventually led to my Division III state championship performance, where I ran 10:81 in prelims and then set a new personal best of 10:65 in the finals, which was a really massive time, except it was wind aided, so it was not an official legal time, unfortunately. Moving on from that, I was competing at the Meet of Champions afterwards, that's kind of the big, the New Hampshire state, championship. And up until that point, I had never competed against most of the D2 and D1 guys. So I was, still feeling out their race strategies and their abilities. My biggest concern was an athlete named Sam Bruno. He was making waves in Division II. He ran a 10:77.
What school?
Hollis Brookline.
Okay.
And he's a great athlete. And he emerged this year. Last year he was a competitive guy, but he wasn't sort of up at the top ranks. This year he clearly put in a lot of work over the summer to improve to the point where he's at now. And I was very concerned about his abilities, because I know he's a very legitimately good sprinter. And as a matter of fact, he's a junior. So next year I'm going to be watching him, because he's going to be a a guy who's making big moves. But I ran a good race that day, pulled out with I believe a 10:75. I also won the 200 meter. So happened to work out very well.
Good. Congrats. So, kind of closing thoughts on your high school career and advice to others?
Yeah, definitely. If you're into a sport, do whatever you can to just do it. It doesn't matter what people think. Obviously, football is the high school sport that you see in all the movies, football, basketball. But if you've got a calling, if you're a tap dancer, do that, because it's so much more fulfilling to do your best at something that you care about. Even if you're, the high school prodigy, who's, the best quarterback in the state, do what you are called to do. And also, do your best, get teammates involved, get your friends into it. Because that's what makes it really, truly enjoyable. Because high school is less serious. You're having fun and you're competing, obviously, but you're enjoying yourself. So you want to make it as enjoyable as possible for yourself and others.
Great, well said. So, college process now.
Yeah, so as far as the college stuff goes, we've never had a college athlete in my family. Or at least not in my recent family. I don't know about,
Super far back.
Yeah.
Right?
But so that was an unfamiliar sort of area. So I talked to some coaches, didn't really get great vibes from their programs, and I kind of decided, like, hey, I'm gonna go to a school that I want to go to for every reason besides athletics, and then I'm gonna see if I'm interested in those, that athletic aspect. So I had a lot of people really strongly encouraging me to pursue college track, because I've had a lot of success in high school. But I sort of stepped back and I said, hey, I'm gonna apply to schools based on whether I want to go there or not. And so it worked out that I found the College of the Holy Cross, which for me has absolutely everything that I want. It's a beautiful campus. It's got a great pre-med program. And I have a lot of friends going there. And then I started reaching out to the coaches, and as it turns out, I got really fortunate. The College of the Holy Cross program looks amazing, and I've had some discussions with some of the athletes on the team as well as the coaches, and it all gives me a great vibe. But that was definitely kind of a weird way of doing it. Not a lot of athletes do that, where they, kind of don't think about the athletics side of it until they're there.
Gotcha. So, for you, just talking to the coaches and everything, what information did you get that you really liked in terms of the athletics program?
Really a big thing was I was having a discussion with the head coach, and she mentioned that one of the most important parts of the team is the team dynamic, and how the members of the team get along with each other, and how it's more than just a team that's trying to do well, but it's actually a family. And that's really impactful for me, especially coming from Bishop Brady, where our team sometimes is 5 people, and we are close. We're all really good friends. And part of track, in my opinion, is becoming friends with people. I have several very, very good friends who I've met through track, and I'm still meeting people through track who are, just good people. And so I was really, really happy to hear that the team is, a huge important aspect of it is how well they get along and how close they are and that sort of thing.
Gotcha. So for you, besides athletics, academically, what are you going to be studying, and just the other appeals for you?
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to major in yet. You go in undeclared to Holy Cross, and then you have to declare, I believe, by the end of your sophomore year. But I'm going to be trying to do the pre-med track. I'm interested in being a hand and wrist orthopedic surgeon, which is kind of a big goal, because it's a competitive field. It's a very academically intensive sort of path to get there, but it's what appeals to me, and I feel pretty confidently that I can achieve that. And then Holy Cross as a whole, outside of just the academics, it gave a good vibe. The campus is really beautiful. It's on this hill in Worcester, and you can sort of look over the city, but you can also, you feel like on campus you're sort of in your own bubble, and you've got your own stuff going on. You don't feel like you're just a part of the city,
Right.
which I really appreciated. And then everybody that I saw there seemed actually happy. You know, a lot of the schools that I toured, it looked like people were putting on a show. Their smiles were a little too big. At Holy Cross, everybody just seemed to actually have a passion about what they were talking about and sort of be genuinely interested in getting more people involved with the school, which was a really positive thing.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. You have anything else to add?
Not particularly.
All right. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you very much.